All right, y'all, welcome back to my arm channel. Okay, so now we're checking out a new product from Agilite. And as you guys already know, we've checked out a lot of products from Agilite already. So I'll put all the thumbnails that I still have kind of all around me here. So Agilite's definitely not new to the channel by any means, and I will be completely transparent. Agilite does send me these products to do reviews and stuff on, so I will kind of keep that up front. So it's not necessarily me paying for it. However, I did originally pay for Agilite products, and I would absolutely continue to pay for Agilite products. And you know, I've still bought some stuff after the fact, just because I needed some other stuff for like other setups and whatnot. But as far as what I recommend, Agilite is always one of those first brands that I would recommend pretty much for anything kind of like tactical gear, kind of like individual gear, pouches or body armor or what have you. But this is their mag release dump pouch, and again, it's kind of all in the name. So you can kind of see as the mag is deployed, so is the dump pouch, which is a really cool product. I will say Agilite just does a fantastic job with innovating on products, because I mean, when you think of a dump pouch, it's very kind of cut and dry, whatever it is. It's, you know, a pouch that you just throw your empty magazines in, or, you know, your low magazines. You just tuck them in there so they're out of the way, and so you're not putting them back in your actual magazine pouches, because obviously that runs the risk of potentially trying to grab those in the future. So it's basically just a way to get your old or your kind of, you know, discarded magazines, to get them out of the way. So there's not really a whole lot of room to innovate with something like that. But honestly, you'd be surprised. Stuff just gets innovated when you don't even expect it to, I guess, in a weird way. And Agilite always does a really good job with things like that. And of course, they have a lot of experience, so they test their products pretty significantly, and they kind of know what is kind of a hindrance or what would absolutely help when it comes to kind of operating or keeping things out of the way when you don't necessarily need it. And that's kind of like the whole purpose of this, is to keep it low profile. Because for one, I mean, you have it integrated with your magazine pouch. So wherever you're going to put a magazine pouch already, you can put the dump pouch, and it takes up the same space as far as like the actual like MOLLE webbing, or kind of like weaving that into your belt itself. Because, you know, traditionally you'll have the dump pouch kind of like on the back, and it'll be taking up its own space. So you're really not cool, especially when you're trying to have more magazines, or if you're on like you know, like a CQB team or something, you want to have like flashbangs. That stuff takes up a lot of room, and it's preferable to get stuff on your belt. At least in my experience, it's preferable to get some of the smaller, lighter stuff on your belt, as opposed to kind of having it on your actual plate carrier setup, especially when it starts getting bulky and you're moving through like doorways and whatnot. You kind of want to streamline everything. So having as much as you can on the belt is definitely a big pro. And to be able to kind of take up the same space to use a dump pouch and a magazine pouch in the same area, like that's awesome. It's definitely no brainer as far as something that you would like to see in kind of every other product that you use in the future, just because again, it frees up a lot of that space, especially for a dump pouch. Some can be kind of bulky. So as far as dump pouches, I've probably used, I don't know, maybe like eight to 10 kind of different dump pouches. They're all very, very similar, except for this one. There are some, you know, it's a little bit nicer as far as how you can kind of stow it away. It's a little bit more low profile, and I'll kind of talk about another one. But that's kind of my experience using dump pouches in the Marine Corps and in the Army, specifically in the infantry and the reconnaissance. That's kind of my experience. So here we have a tactical tailor dump pouch. So pretty standard. So you see you have the webbing, so you can just kind of weave this. But again, like, so you have kind of three. So if you want to use up all three, or kind of just have it so it's not like lopsided, you're basically taking up 3 slots on your belt. And I mean, it's pretty bare bones. So you got the grommets on the bottom to kind of like drain water and some sand. And then you have the clip just to kind of like stow it away. So when you're not actually using it, you can kind of just clip it. But even still, like that's kind of what it looks like. It's still pretty wide. And then you have the drawstring, so as you're putting magazines in or what have you, you can kind of have this as your preference, however, you know, kind of tight you want it. Kind of reminds me of like a chalk bag. I think I've actually used a dump pouch that I've used a dump pouch that I just taped up as a chalk bag at one point. Okay, I'm going on a tangent. And here is another kind of dump pouch. So this one, much more kind of like low profile. This is from Blue Forest Gear. Pretty solid kind of solution when it comes to kind of keeping it minimalistic. So you can see this only takes up 2 MOLLE slots or pallet slots. And then you can see as you deploy that, you kind of just pull this and then you have the same kind of thing. This doesn't actually have any grommets on the bottom, which is going to be a bad day when it gets like a bunch of sand and water in it, but it does kind of have that standard drawstring. This one isn't actually very elastic or like kind of elastic at all. So it's minimalistic, but you kind of drop a lot of the conveniences or common sense things. What the heck is in here? Oh, I got some 9mm rounds in here. Okay, random. So very good solution when it comes to being like minimalistic and taking up as little space as possible on the belts, but it is still taking up those slots, and you know, it's its own kind of dedicated space. And then again, you kind of sacrifice because the drawstring, you don't have the elastic, you don't have the grommets, and this thing, like, let's see, if I get, this is just 2 magazines, which they'd probably be empty because you're usually throwing empty magazines in there. So just 2 magazines, you can kind of see already this thing is going to be fucking moving all over the place. So as this is like, you do anything, especially if you're climbing a ladder or you know what have you, this thing is going to move around like crazy. So yeah, you kind of just have to like pick your battles with a lot of these kind of solutions. And I'll kind of show you the Tactical Tailor. I mean, it just has a little bit more kind of material to it. And again, it uses up more of the actual like MOLLE slots, so it'll have 3. So this isn't going to move around as much, but even still, you're gonna get a pretty significant amount of kind of jingle, especially as you get kind of more magazines or more weight in this. So why does any of that matter when it comes to the Agilite mag release dump pouch? So again, you're not using your own kind of dedicated space for this. Wherever you're putting a magazine pouch, you can put the dump pouch. So with that, you have that kind of convenience, but you have a lot of kind of what you would expect. So here on the bottom, you can see you have a mesh. So if you get like sand or water, what have you, you have a lot of mesh, which is awesome. And it's also kind of cool that it's still like all the multicam mesh. Big fan of that. Same with like the multicam Velcro. I kind of geek out with like the little finer details like that. But yeah, you have the kind of multicam mesh here on the bottom. So again, as things kind of go into it, you don't want to have all that extra bullshit kind of like going into your magazines, or you know, if you do have like a magazine that still has rounds in it or something, you don't want to throw that where it's just kind of like sitting in water or sitting in sand, because if you do need to take it and you put that in your weapon, again, now you're getting all that crap in your weapon, which you don't want to do. So you have that, which is awesome. You have the drawstring as well, so you can kind of see here. So if you kind of want to tighten it up a bit, you can pull that drawstring, and then now you have it a lot tighter. So as I'm getting magazines, I can kind of chuck them in there. So already that's kind of the idea of the mag release dump pouch and how it compares with a lot of the other magazine pouches that you'll see on the market. But I will kind of go into some of the more kind of like finer details as far as how you can actually use this, and also just the dump pouch itself. So this is a pretty new product. I think it was released on July 17th, if I remember correctly. It's made of 500D Cordura, so very kind of abrasion resistant, so very kind of tough. With that Blue Force gear, I mean, it's cool. Again, it's kind of convenient to kind of stow it away, but if that thing like snagged, it has ripstop on it, but like if it snags, it's probably gonna rip pretty quick, and when you have like magazines and stuff, that stuff might be falling out pretty quick. But yeah, this is 500D Cordura, so very abrasion resistant, very kind of like slash cut resistant. So this is going to be a very kind of durable long-term solution, not something that you're going to have to worry about replacing really at all. Even with like the elastic kind of drawstrings, you're not really going to be worrying about replacing anything like that. Now, one thing that I love with Agilite is, although they'll have like a lot of this innovation and research going into something, they're not going to like completely try and screw you over on the pricing. So you can get this for about $55, you know, obviously shipping and handling and whatnot, but $55 for something like this is awesome. You'll see dump pouches go for like pretty stupid prices. You can get them for like, I mean, if you get like a surplus, like US Marine Corps or even like some old Army dump pouches. You can get them for like 10 bucks, but they're very kind of like very rigid, just kind of like the Cordura or like nylon material, and not a whole lot of like creature comfort or innovation with something like that. So $55 I think is very, very reasonable for a product like this, especially with like what it offers compared to kind of other things on the market. It says it's advertised to hold up to about 5 magazines. So you can see I just put in 3 right there. Let me get another one real quick. So here we have 4 magazines. So I will say I am kind of like stacking them pretty neatly in there. And I mean, yeah, it could definitely hold 5. It could probably hold 6, maybe 7 if you're like being kind of strategic in how you're putting them in there. But it, like, I will say, like, if I just throw one in there and then I keep throwing them, they naturally kind of like stack. I haven't really had an issue with that. But as I'm just throwing them in there, I think at about 4 is when I need to start like fumbling to kind of like get space, which is fine. I mean, if you're dumping 4 magazines in your dump pouch, you are in the shit, and you've probably been in the fight for quite some time. So it's probably not going to be too big of a deal to spend about 3 seconds just to kind of like do that and reshuffle your dump pouch and make room for more. Now, things that I like compared to other dump pouches. So although like, I mean, it's got the structure, you can see it's kind of very blocky, which I kind of prefer, just because like you can see there's like rigidity there, there's like structure there, as opposed to some other dump pouches. Those, like, as you kind of throw stuff in there, it'll kind of take the shape of that. So like you'll get some like dump pouches that just start looking super crazy. At that point, it kind of starts encroaching a little bit on like whatever you have around it. So I do like how it has this structure. It pretty much goes out, it's very blocky. I have these pistol magazine pouches here. So as I'm like throwing these in here or whatever, like I'm not really like losing any of the space on the sides too much. So you can see it's still kind of going out. It's also not really, it's not sagging at all, because it's got the laminate on the kind of inside, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, but it's got that laminate which adds a lot more structure, and it adds a lot more kind of like rigidity again, and retention. So it's not sagging or anything, and again, it just maintains its shape very well. And then as you kind of move around, you can see here I'm like pretty aggressively kicking it, and it's like barely moving. I mean, when you kind of move side to side, you get a little bit of sway, but even still, like, this thing doesn't really move around a whole lot, which is awesome. Like, I do love that kind of structure aspect, because I just like when things stay put. When stuff on your gear starts moving in places that you don't want it to be, or that it wasn't originally, that's when it starts becoming a hassle, where it starts increasing the kind of like unpredictability factor of like, oh, let me kind of reach for this, but now, you know, there's some crap in the way, and you know, all my like muscle memory as far as what I've trained with is kind of all out of funk. So it's nice to kind of have everything where it originally was, if that makes sense. So with this dump pouch, it'll come with some instructions. So as far as like how to actually mount it, how to use it with a magazine pouch, you can see here it shows kind of like the install of the magazine pouch with the actual dump pouch. And then you can see here how to kind of also just mount it by itself. So you got those coming with it, and then it also comes with this. So this is basically the how you would attach it to like a belt or something just by itself if you're using it as a standalone, which again, very nice kind of like structure, and just has all the other features of a dump pouch. So if you want to run it kind of by itself, you do have that option. So it comes with that, and you can kind of just weave it through the laminate back here. So let me kind of pull this down. So you can kind of see under I have a S-Tac Kiwi right here, which I will say it's nice for Agilite, because like they could make it very simple and kind of just make everything to work with their own gear, kind of like an Apple mindset, if that makes sense. But they still provide gear that works with other companies. So like S-Tac QEs, I mean, I've been using these for a while. I have kind of a lot of them. So it's just something that I have. I don't need to go and purchase more Agilite magazine pouches, which they are fantastic. I will say those pincer magazine pouches are awesome, but like I don't need to go and purchase more if I have something like this that already works totally fine. So I have this kind of S-Tac magazine pouch, so I can use that with their dump pouch, which is awesome. You don't need to kind of like worry about stuff like that. So you can see here under the S-Tac is there's like kind of laminate. So it's about that much laminate, kind of like a rigid, almost like a plastic polymer material, and it's also got laser cuts in it. So that is basically what you would weave your magazine pouch through that laminate and then just onto your actual belt setup. So there's maybe like a little bit more like step, but as far as like complexity, it's very kind of simple. So you would basically mount your magazine pouch as you would to your belt, except you're just weaving it through that laminate before, or kind of as you're weaving it onto your belt. It's very, very simple. And just like that, you have a magazine pouch that's set up with it. And then we can just get our magazine. So just like that, if I'm kind of running and gunning, I have my magazine pouch already kind of set up. But then all I need to do is fold this in, and then you have like this cord here that would actually go around the magazine itself. So you can kind of like tuck this in a little bit just to make it kind of more streamlined and whatnot. So if you want to like, I'm sure there's probably a better way to fold this and whatnot, but yeah, you can get it pretty low profile already. So just like that, like my muscle mechanics and whatnot, everything is still the same. It's just my magazine pouch where it was before, except I have something attached to it, or kind of attached to the pouch itself. So as I draw that magazine, I'm not even worrying about the dump pouch, but it's just something that is there and accessible that you're not necessarily having to make accessible otherwise. If I'm shooting, I reload, and that's when you actually need the dump pouch. So let's kind of like run through this real quick just so it makes a little bit more sense. So you don't need a dump pouch until you start stowing magazines, and you're not really going to start stowing magazines until you've used a magazine, which you're probably using the one that's in your weapon already, because wherever you are, you're probably deploying or something with a magazine in your weapon. So this is kind of how I would be starting off. Let's say I'm going on patrol or what have you, and I just got my magazine set up and whatnot. I got more in my plate carrier, what have you. So this is kind of how I'm set up already. So let's say I'm going bang, bang, bang. I end up running dry on my weapon, and then I just reload as I normally would, except now, this is kind of deploying by itself. So whatever, do my speed reload, bang, 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 and then there's like a lull in the fight or what have you. I can kind of take a tactical pause. I'm just gonna grab one of these magazines. I can grab my magazine and I can just chuck it in there so I can use it in the future and make sure I'm not losing all my stuff. And we can say, for example, I wanted to do a tactical reload. So, and I won't make this look too pretty. I'll just do this. So whatever I do my bang, 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 it only fired maybe like 20 rounds, but I want to get like a new magazine. So I'm deploying that, getting my new magazine in, and now I can chuck that in my dump pouch. Again, it's not even something that I'm thinking about, as opposed to like, oh, let me unclip my dump pouch and let me kind of like pull it down and make sure the drawstring is good. I can kind of feel it. And also like having a dump pouch in the back, it gets a little bit awkward. Like it's not too bad right now when I'm not wearing body armor, but as you start putting on body armor and whatnot, your mobility and stuff kind of goes away. So it is nice to be able to just kind of like have it where you're actually taking your ammunition from, because you're going to put your magazines where it's easily accessible. So it's nice for the dump pouch to be in that same easily accessible area. So again, I kind of demonstrate that, but I'll do a tactical reload. Cool. And now this is all very much in reach, just like where it was when I was actually grabbing my magazine in the first place. I'm not trying to, like, as we would say in the Marine Corps, fumble it. So I'm not like fumbling my dump pouch behind me. It's all kind of in view, which is nice. And also, like, if you have a dump pouch that's in the back, this is something that I've noticed. If I did do a tactical reload and I still have some rounds in this magazine, if it's back here and there's other magazines in there, I'm basically doing this. I'm like reaching back. I'm like, okay. And I grab like one magazine and I'm like, nope, not the right one. And I'll kind of like try and separate it, but it is nice for it to be up here because I can just grab both of these, do that. Okay, this one's empty. This one's still got rounds, more than what I already had, and then I can kind of do that or what have you. So again, it's nice to just be able to have it a little bit more easily accessible, and it's not going to be a pain in the butt. I know something that like I was kind of worried about is having all this weight kind of in the front now as opposed to in the back might kind of get in the way, and it does in some things. So let's say, for example, I want to take a knee, like it's still kind of on my thigh. If I have a lot of magazines, you know, I will kind of like maybe have to scoot that over to the side or what have you, but it doesn't really get in the way as much as I thought. It's kind of the same as like having a dangler pouch. Didn't get in the way as much as I thought it would. So as you kind of train with it, you'll understand what positions it might get in the way with. Like for example, if I were to get into the prone, this is probably going to be a little bit more of a hindrance, but you can kind of see my belt for demonstration purposes is kind of canted. So let's see kind of where that would actually sit. And I've kind of done some reloads and whatnot. Taking a knee, not really an issue whatsoever. Going in the prone, it might, especially as the weight kind of shifts a little bit more towards the front. But yeah, so even still kind of like this, I can see everything just fine. Cool. And then it's not really moving too much in the prone. I will say, like, if I moved a little bit, it might kind of, you know, get trapped. But for the most part, I haven't really noticed that. And you can kind of see it's even less of an issue getting into the knee and whatnot. So really just like not a whole lot of cons when it comes to this. There is one though, and I'll kind of like put the clips up here as well, but it does snag sometimes. Now I have a lot of Magpul magazines, and these tend to have like the lip and whatnot. So let's say I have that in. If you have like a normal kind of like whatever Stenag, like the steel or aluminum magazines, might not be as much of an issue because they don't really have that lip. But I've noticed with my Magpul P-Mags, that happens sometimes, is it'll kind of catch that, which not too big of a deal, especially if I'm kind of reloading aggressively, but it is definitely a consideration. Something that you maybe have to fumble with a little bit. If I do it 10 times, it might happen like, you know, once. But it's more of if you're kind of doing it more slowly. So let's see if I can kind of do it slowly. Yeah, so if I'm kind of doing it slowly, kind of like the limp wrist of reloading. But you're going to be kind of a little bit more aggressive with it. So it's not going to be as much of an issue. But again, when you're kind of talking about those speed reloads, when you really need to get that magazine out, you want... I mean, and you practice all these reloads and stuff so you can shave off, like there's nanoseconds or milliseconds, what have you. You want to shave off that time. So having a little bit of snag potentially might add some of that back. But again, kind of being a little bit more aggressive with it hasn't been too much of an issue. It's kind of like at first you might notice it, but as you kind of continue to do it, it's not really as much of an issue. It's kind of like you get something new and you're like, oh, this is weird. And you kind of want something to be wrong with it or kind of like stuck with it in a weird way. But as you kind of like do things a little bit more naturally, you're not really noticing it as much anymore. It's kind of like a confirmation bias kind of thing. And I will kind of just run some scenarios, or I'll kind of do some, not scenarios, but some reloads real quick so you guys can see some more. And I'll just keep this unedited so it's not fake news or anything like that. Okay, so rifle, bang, bang, bang. Hopefully these reloads and look goofy. I'm not gonna actually send the bolt forward because whatever. I don't have any snap caps in here or anything. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, cool. Let's try that again. So again, deployed just fine. No snag issue there whatsoever. I'm gonna make this look a little bit less pretty now. Okay, bang, bang, bang. Reload, cool, bang, bang, bang. Do that a couple more times. So yeah, not really feeling the snag. At first I did because I was like trying to feel it deploying, or I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool, that works. You're kind of looking at it a little bit more. But as you do everything a little bit more naturally, as you would with a speed reload, it's not becoming an issue. This sling sucks. When it comes to this like M16 setup, it's not fun. You just loosen that up a bit. I'll do that one more time. Again, this is why you do this stuff, so you can kind of understand what you do and don't like about your gear. But I need to find a better solution. Maybe get this sling like on the side or something, so it's not going by the mag well. It's an issue I had in the Marine Corps as well with our Vickers sling. But yeah, so you can see with all those, no issue whatsoever. You know what? Let's do one more. And if it's not really happening with these magazines, these P-mags, having that kind of like lip there, you're probably fine with most of the magazines. I mean, I know the Lancer magazines, I think you'll be fine, yeah. Okay, bang, 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 reload, boom, cool, just like that. Honestly, and that's it. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse when it comes to this. It's very much self-explanatory. I mean, it's pretty much, it's in the name. It's kind of being very transparent and self-aware of what it is. But okay, as far as the kind of pros and cons. So again, we kind of talked about these already, but the real estate that it saves on your belt is probably the biggest thing for me. It's just awesome. I mean, like having that much free space, especially like in the back, if you're working at a stack or something, you could have 2 or 3 flashbangs now in the back. You can have like smoke grenades. Like it's awesome to have that much free real estate on the back specifically, which is like kind of like the non-critical items, but also if you're working in a stack, you know, items that you can kind of put for your buddies to, you know, have access to. Again, the structure, the rigidity when it comes to this, as far as like the laminate in the back, but also just the kind of like shape itself is fantastic. The materials, again, really like everything is as perfected as it could be, you know, for what it is. You do have that kind of mesh on the bottom, so as far as like sand and water, that will drain. You have the drawstring. I will say a little bit of gripe with the drawstring. It's kind of like a pain in the ass. So like, let's say I wanted to, this is me pulling it kind of like full strength, and it gets it, I mean, it gets it like as tight as you really need to. Let's see if I have a magazine. I mean, yeah, it's not, the likelihood of something coming out with the drawstring kind of pulled that taut is very unlikely. It's not completely closed. You know, if you have like Skittles or something, if you're being a creature, or if you have like loose rounds, it's not completely closed, and it can't really get completely closed, but I guess it's not really the point, especially working with a magazine. You don't want to kind of like collapse it on that magazine pouch, because then you have more potential of like that magazine potentially hitting the material itself. So there's that. Not really an issue for me as I see it, but also releasing the drawstring is kind of a pain in the butt. You kind of have to like come from behind it and pull it back through. It won't kind of like release by itself. So once you do that, you can kind of do that and you're good to go. But yeah, that's my only little like thing, which is really like a non-issue for me, to be honest. But yeah, as far as like the structure and whatnot, I love it compared to like other dump pouches. It's nice having like the full mesh. I mean, very kind of like durable, solid stitching with all Agilite products. And some of those grommets, you'll have them get like kind of like bent up and dented and rusted, which is also a very kind of dumb, small little gripe. Grommets work okay too, to be honest. But yeah, mesh works totally fine. Again, you have that good structure. You have a lot more real estate available. It works with the magazine pouches, which is awesome. Very easy to mount it. You can mount it with the magazine pouch. You can mount it with kind of like by itself. And then again, being where a magazine pouch is, everything is very kind of conveniently located for, you know, if you do need to kind of like reassess those magazines, you can take them out very easy with a you know, again, try not to fumble everything behind you. And again, as you're actually stowing those magazines, especially for like a tactical reload, it makes it very easy as well, because I can just boom, boom, just like that. So yeah. And then again, as far as the cons, you do have a small potential snag hazard, which I haven't noticed being an issue as I'm actually reloading kind of, again, naturally as I normally would. No issue there whatsoever. With certain magazines, it might be more of an issue, but I haven't run into that, at least using the kind of like Lancer magazines or the P-Mags or the general like mil-spec aluminum Stenag kind of format magazines. But yeah, it's an awesome product. And again, innovating something like a dump pouch. I mean, a dump pouch is something that if you don't have the real estate, people will just not wear one. They just won't get one. They won't care to invest in that. They won't care to invest in the space on their belts because they just want to put other things. It's nice that you don't have to compromise there, because again, it works with everything else that you would kind of already put on your belt, which is awesome. So yeah, I mean, again, innovating something like that is so cool, and it's not something that I kind of even expected to happen anytime soon, or really even at all, because dump pouch is a dump pouch. It's always been just exactly that. Maybe like a little bit of like creature comforts here and there, maybe more focus on being like more minimalistic, but again, it kind of sacrifices in other areas. So as far as any other dump pouch, there's none that I've seen that stack up to this. If you guys know another dump pouch that has like either very unique features or kind of like similar features like this, let me know down in the comment section. I'm always down to kind of, you know, purchase and do like a little compare and contrast. But for what it is a fantastic product. And again, like if you want a dump pouch, which I recommend, they're very helpful, not just for magazines, but also just like extra space to throw, you know, bullshit to. It is, I'm not doing a good job with keeping the monetization. It's just a fantastic product, and I can't really say a whole lot more about that. 100% would recommend it. If someone's like, hey, I'm trying to get a dump pouch, I'm gonna go to this, and I'll explain to them why. It's not just because like, oh, Agilite, they send me free stuff and, you know, it makes me look cool. It's got a lot of really good features, and it's very durable. And yeah, I kind of swear by Agilite just with their reputation as far as like the experience and the amount of attention to detail they put in their products, but also just having used their products for probably like 6 years at this point. Yeah, so big fan of Agilites. Again, kind of talking from my experience in the Marine Corps and the Army infantry, kind of more in CQB and also reconnaissance and conventional infantry. That's kind of where I'm talking from and why I appreciate these specific features. But if you guys have any questions, of course, let me know down in the comment section. If you want me to like try it in certain positions or what have you, like I'm totally fine. My kids will think I'm looking a little bit weird as I'm throwing this belt on and stuff, probably with like my shorts and flip-flops or Crocs or something, but I'll do it for y'all. So if you have any questions, definitely let me know down in the comment section. But that is it for this video, so we'll see y'all in the next one.